Hello students, welcome to my channel Learning History Made Easy. In today's video, I will be explaining about the Indian national movement. Before going into the video, if anyone is seeing the channel for the first time or if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and share it with your friends. So without wasting time, let us get into today's video. So as I told, today's video is about the Indian national movement. The Indian national movement. So today we will see about the background for the rise of nationalism in India. So first, India was subjected to many foreign invasions. We all know that India as a land attracted many foreigners. So that is why India was subjected to many foreign invasions. Many foreign invasions. And many foreigners invaded India, like the Greeks, or you can say Sakas, Kushanas, etc. But what was the speciality of these foreign invasion? All these invaders, they gradually settled in India. They gradually settled in India, and also they adopted to Indian culture. They became part of India. They adopted to Indian culture. So that was the kind of foreign invasion which happened earlier. But there was a different kind of foreign invasion, that is, the British who invaded India never wished to settle in India. They never wished to settle or to become a part of India, settle in India, and they did not consider India as their motherland, and they not considered India as their motherland. So that was a difference between the British invaders and the other foreign invaders who came in India. So the Indians were subjected to many foreign invasions like the Greeks, Sakas, Kushanas, etc. All such invaders, they gradually settled in India and adopted to Indian culture, and they even contributed to Indian culture. But the difference was the British, they never wished to settle in India, and they never wanted to make or never considered India as their motherland. So that was the difference between the British invasion and the other foreign invasion. The British established political supremacy over India. So the British wanted to establish political supremacy. Political supremacy over India, and to establish this political supremacy they used different strategies. Many different strategies they used, and they established political supremacy over India. And with this political supremacy, the Indians started to respond against this. So the Indians responded against this British occupation, and this response of the Indians came in the form of Indian national movement. Indian national movement. So I hope you have understood the background. The British tried to establish political supremacy using different strategies, and the movement through which the Indians responded against this was the Indian national movement. And this Indian national movement included a wide range of political, social and religious movement. All these were included in the Indian national movement. Political, social, religious movements, all were included in the Indian national movement. So that was the background for the rise of Indian national movement. So now let us see the important factors for the growth of Indian nationalism. What were the factors which led the Indians to develop this nationalism? So factors for the growth of Indian nationalism. Indian nationalism. So let us see one by one the factors. So the first factor was the British, they considered India as India to be just a colony. British, they considered India to be a colony, and they wanted this colony to provide cheap raw materials, That was what British considered India. They wanted cheap raw materials to be provided by Indians. So they considered India as a colony to provide cheap raw materials, and also they considered India as a market to sell their finished goods. So the British considered India to be a colony and which provided cheap raw materials as well as a market for their finished goods. So this was the economic policy of the British, and this British economic policy destroyed the economic structure that existed in India. So this policy destroyed the economic structure which existed in India. That is, they considered India, they took all the raw materials from India and they sold their finished products in India. So this economic policy of the British destroyed the economic structure that existed in India, and also it affected the village industries. The village industries were affected because they did not have enough raw materials. Village industries, petty trade, and the peasants, all of them suffered from the British policy. All of them had to face a lot of suffering because of the British policy. And because of all these factors, unemployment also increased. Unemployment also increased in India, and thus the economic situation of India was highly affected. So this was the first cause for the rise of Indian nationalism, the British economic policy. And now let us see the second factor for the growth of Indian nationalism. The British provided a uniform system of administration. A uniform system of administration was provided in India. Administration was provided. India was a land of different castes and culture, and the uniform system of administration provided by British was not accepted by the Indians. They provided uniform system of administration and also judicial system. Uniform judicial system, both were introduced by the British, and this was not welcomed by the Indians. Now the third reason for the growth of Indian nationalism was a Western system of education. Western system of education. The Western system of education, that is in English, the English education, it broke the monopoly of the traditional education system in India. It broke the monopoly of the traditional education system in India. The Indians had a traditional education system, and this traditional education system mainly was practiced in Sanskrit, Persian, and Arabic. This was how the traditional education system was practiced in India. But when the British introduced English education, this broke the monopoly of the traditional educational system in India. And the enlightened Indians began to compare their existing conditions to Europe. That is, the educated Indians, they started to compare the India with Europe, the situation in India with Europe. So that also was an impact of the British rule. So the Western system, that is Western system of education in English, it broke the monopoly of the traditional education system which was practiced in Sanskrit, Persian and Arabic. The enlightened Indians, or the educated Indians, started to compare the existing conditions of India with that of Europe. Now what was the effect of this comparison made by the educated Indians? This made the Indians feel that, or they came to know about the success of Germany, and the success of Italy against foreign dominance. They came to know the success of Germany and Italy against foreign dominance. And with this they felt that it gave an inspiration to the Indian nationalists. So the success of Germany and Italy against foreign dominance and the establishment of united and independent nation, all these inspired Indian nationalists. So this was also an effect of the Western system of education. It was only through this Western system of education that Indians came to know of the success of Germany and Italy and their unification. And that is why it inspired the Indian nationalists. So that was another factor for the rise of nationalism. Now the fourth factor was the British considered themselves as racially superior than Indians, racially superior. So they felt that they are racially superior than the Indians. And because of this, they discriminated and degraded the Indians. So Indians had to face a lot of discriminated and degraded Indians because they considered, or the British considered themselves as racially superior. All the high officers in administration, judiciary, legislature, all were given to the British only. Administration, judiciary, legislature, all the high officers were given only to British people. Indians did not have the chance to be appointed in any of these high offices. So the British considered themselves as racially superior. They discriminated and degraded Indians. All the high officers in administration, judiciary and legislature were with the British. So that also made the Indians upset and was a cause for the rise of Indian nationalism. See, although there was a Queen's Proclamation, the Queen's Proclamation which happened in 1858, according to the Queen's Proclamation, it promised to include more Indians into military and administrative service. So this Queen's Proclamation, it promised to include more Indians into higher post of into military and administration. This proclamation was there, but even though it was not very easy for Indians to get those positions, so it was made very difficult. All the promise was made, the actual thing was made very difficult. So although the Queen's Proclamation 1848 promised to include more Indians into military and administration, the entry of Indians was made very difficult. So Indians were not easily made to enter into such position. Entry was made very difficult. So actually in practical view, if you see, it was made impossible. And the British looked down upon Indian culture and heritage. So the Indian culture and heritage was looked down upon by the Indians, looked down by British. So this was also another cause for the rise of Indian nationalism. The British did not give any respect to the Indian culture and heritage. So that was another cause for the rise of Indian nationalism. Now the fifth cause was the British waged a series of wars and followed different policies. So here the British waged a series of wars. Different wars were fought during this period by the British, and also the British followed many policies like subsidiary alliance. Another policy was the doctrine of Lapse. Through all these policies, the British tried to establish political supremacy over India. All these policies for establishing political supremacy. So the British waged different wars, as well as they followed policies like Subsidiary alliance and Doctrine of Lapse to establish political supremacy over India. And the rulers and officers, there were different rulers and officers who lost their power through all these policies, or through war or these policies. Many rulers and officers had lost their power and prestige, and all these rulers and officers, they started turning against British. They turned against British. So the British waged a series of wars and sorry, and also followed policies like Subsidiary alliance and Doctrine of Lapse to establish political supremacy over India. The rulers and officers who lost their power and prestige in this situation turned against the British. So these were the reasons, these also were the reasons for the rise of Indian nationalism. Now the last reason, that is the sixth reason for the rise of Indian nationalism, was Indian press and literature inspired nationalism among the Indians. So the role of Indian press and also literature, both these led to the growth, or it inspired nationalism among the Indians. Nationalism among the Indians. The plight of the people, so it made the people realize what was happening. So the plight of the people, or we can say the problems of the people due to the British rule, or due to the British administration, were all published. All these were published with the help of Indian press and literature. Many articles, many poems came to be published, articles and poems, and these articles and poems all inspired nationalism. So articles and poems which inspired nationalism was published both in English and vernacular language. These articles and poems were both in English as well as vernacular language, that is the local languages. So that also inspired the people, or made the people more nationalistic. So the Indian press and literature inspired nationalism among Indians. The plight of the people due to the impact of British rule and administration was published. Many articles and poems which inspired nationalism were published both in English as well as vernacular languages. Now there were many people who contributed to the growth of Indian nationalism. We can say scholars like R.G. Bhandarkar, then Gangadhar Tilak, as well as Swami Vivekananda, and the list goes on, etc. All these leaders, they conducted research and they brought to light the glorious cultural past of India. They wrote about the glorious cultural past of India. They conducted research, and after that they published works and they made the people understand about the glorious cultural past of India. And this realization about our glorious past, it filled nationalists with pride and self-confidence. Indians were filled with pride and self-confidence after knowing about the glorious past of our country. So all these, contribution of scholars like R.G. Bhandarkar, Gangadhar Tilak, Swami Vivekananda, etc. They conducted research and brought to light the glorious cultural past of India, and this filled the nationalists with pride and self-confidence. So all these factors contributed to the rise of Indian nationalism. So now just let us go through the points which we have studied till now. Indian national movement background. Indians were subjected to many foreign invasions like Greeks, Sakas, Kushanas, etc. All such invaders gradually settled in India and adopted to Indian culture. British never wished to settle in India and make India their motherland. They established political supremacy over India by using different strategies. The movement through which Indians responded against the British occupation is called the Indian National Movement. It includes a wide range of political, social and religious movement. Important factors for the growth of Indian nationalism. The British considered India to be only a colony which provided cheap raw materials and a market for their finished goods. The economic policy destroyed the economic structure that existed. Indian village industries, petty trade and peasantry suffered. Unemployment began to grow and India became economically backward. The British provided a uniform system of administration and judicial system by establishing political unity for a substantive period. The Western system of education in India broke the monopoly of traditional educational system practiced in Sanskrit, Persian and Arabic. The enlightened Indians began to compare their existing condition to that of Europe. The success of Germany and Italy against foreign dominance and establishment of a united and independent nation inspired the nationalists. The British considered themselves to be racially superior to Indians. They discriminated and degraded the Indians. All high officers in administration, judiciary and legislature were with the British. The Queen's Proclamation in 1858 promised to include more Indians into military and administration, but the entry of Indians into important offices was made difficult. The British looked down upon the Indian culture and heritage. The British waged a series of wars and followed policies like Subsidiary alliance and Doctrine of Lapse to establish political supremacy over India. The rulers and officers who lost their power and prestige turned against the British. The Indian press and literature inspired nationalism among Indians. The plight of the people due to the impact of administrative policies and the lapses of the British government were published. Many articles and poems inspiring nationalism were published both in English and vernacular languages. Scholars like R.G. Bhandarkar, Gangadhar Tilak, Swami Vivekananda, etc. conducted research and brought to light the glorious cultural past of India. This filled the nationalists with pride and self-confidence. So now let us move on to the next topic, that is establishment of Indian National Congress. Establishment of Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress. This happened in 1885. So now we know that the Indians were filled with the spirit of nationalism, and this led to the establishment of Indian National Congress in 1885. So the political organization which was there before Indian National Congress, the political organization which was there before Indian National Congress, I am writing INC, before Indian National Congress, were working or were less effective, or it was less effective, and it was working in different provinces. It was less effective. So the Indians decided to start a new organization, that is Indian National Congress. So the idea of Indian National Congress was conceived by a British civil servant. So a British civil servant, and his name is Allan Octavian Hume, A.O. Hume, Allan Octavian Hume. He was the person who conceived the idea of national union. He conceived the idea of a national union, and this national union was a national union of leaders, that is political, we can say a national union of political leaders. So the political organization before Indian National Congress was less effective and it worked in different provinces. A British civil servant, Allan Octavian Hume, that is A.O. Hume, he conceived the idea of a national union of political leaders. So that was the beginning of Indian National Congress. The idea was conceived by A.O. Hume. He inspired them to establish Indian National Union. So A.O. Hume inspired the Indians to establish an Indian National Union in 1884, and this later became Indian National Congress and its first session, the first session of Indian National Congress was held in Bombay, and it was held on 27th December 1885, 27/12/1885. And Womesh Chandra Banerjee became the first president of Indian National Congress. Womesh Chandra Banerjee, he was a famous barrister of Calcutta. He was a famous barrister of Calcutta. He became the first president of Indian National Congress. First president. And in the first session, that is, which was held in Bombay, 72 delegates from different parts of India attended the meeting, and 4 of them out of the 72 were from Karnataka. So the A.O. Hume inspired the Indians to establish Indian National Union in 1884, which later became Indian National Congress. Its first session was held in Bombay on 27/12/1885, and Womesh Chandra Banerjee, a famous barrister of Calcutta, was elected as the president. 72 delegates attended the conference from different part of India, and out of them 4 were from Karnataka. So this was about the establishment of Indian National Congress. Now let us see the objectives of Indian National Congress. Why was Indian National Congress established? Objectives of Indian National Congress. So the first objective of Indian National Congress was to encourage and consolidate national unity. The main objective was to encourage and to consolidate national unity. National unity was what was necessary for the Indians to fight against the British. So it wanted to encourage and consolidate national unity. The second one was to remove prejudices, and the prejudices related to religion, caste, province, etc. Because Indians need to be united, and to be united they need to remove prejudices related to religion, caste, province, etc. and then only the unity will be possible. The third one was to promote intimacy and friendship among Indians. Promote intimacy and friendship among Indians. So the main aim was to make the Indians more and more united. So to promote intimacy and friendship among Indians was the third objective of Indian National Congress. The fourth objective was to politically educate Indian masses. Politically educate the Indian masses or the common people, to make them understand and formulate a public opinion. So if the common people understands, then only a public opinion will be formed. So it wanted to politically educate the Indian masses or the common people, and a public opinion should be formed. And the next one was to pressurize the British. To pressurize the British to act upon this public opinion. So once a public opinion is formed, when people are all united and a public opinion is formed, then Indian leaders can pressurize the British. So when Indians are united, Indian people understand the problem, they form a common opinion that the British should go out of our country, then they can pressurize the British to act upon this public opinion. And the last objective was to include more Indians in councils and civil services. More Indians have to be included in councils and civil services, then only development will happen. So all these were the objectives of Indian National Congress: to encourage and consolidate national unity, to remove prejudices of religion, caste, province, etc., to promote intimacy and friendship among Indians, to politically educate Indian masses and to form a public opinion, then to pressurize the British to enact upon the public opinion, and finally to include more Indians in councils and civil services. So these were the objectives of Indian National Congress. So now just let us go through the points which we have studied. Establishment of Indian National Congress in 1885. The political organizations before Indian National Congress were working in different provinces and were less effective. A British civil servant, Allan Octavian Hume, conceived a national union of political leaders. He inspired them to establish Indian National Union in 1884. This became Indian National Congress. The first session was held in Bombay on 27/12/1885. Womesh Chandra Banerjee, a famous barrister of Calcutta, was elected as the president. 72 delegates from different parts of India attended it, and 4 of them were from Karnataka. The objectives of Indian National Congress: to encourage and consolidate the national unity, to remove prejudices of religion, caste, province, etc., to promote intimacy and friendship among Indians, to politically educate the Indian masses and formulate a public opinion, to pressurize the British to favorably act upon the public opinion, and to include more Indians in the councils and civil services. So I hope you have understood all these points regarding the origin of Indian national movement. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel, as your likes and comments will be of a great encouragement for me to make more and more videos. So I hope to see you all soon in the next video. Thank you for watching.